you make of these questions from Congress?
They have been building over the years. There are three major risks, I think, to the large cap tech platforms. One is competition, one is maturity, and the third is regulation. And you saw it come to roost or come to life in Europe with this GDPR implementation, data privacy regulations that were imposed earlier this year. So far, those don't seem to have had an impact on either advertiser or user interest in these platforms like Facebook or Google. The question is now, will they be ported over to the U.S.? I think it's unlikely to happen, but it's possible. And if the companies don't respond well in public, then it makes it more likely we'll see regulation.
Right. How forthcoming do you think Google and Apple will be?
I don't know about Apple. I think Google's been relatively forthcoming to date, and so has Facebook. I thought Zuckerberg did an extremely good job going in front of Congress and the Senate and explaining the company's positions. I think, I bet you Larry Page could do just as good of a job.
Well, part of the problem is actually getting the executives there. Mark Zuckerberg went with no small amount of arm twisting. Senator Mark Warner had this to say about whether he thinks Congress can actually come up with smart regulation, smart legislation. Take a listen.
If Congress tries to do this on its own, a lot of my colleagues, aren't that expertise in technology. I spent a career in tech before I came to Congress. I've been on this issue of social media for the last 16 months. We need the input of the tech companies, or we could probably mess up the solution. So I would hope Mr. Zuckerberg and his colleagues would actually come forward with what they could support and which of these ideas might be the best way to pursue.
As you know, some of the questions that lawmakers asked Mark Zuckerberg were not particularly well informed. Are you concerned that Congress will come up with regulation that is not helpful for anyone?
Yeah, I think that's a legitimate concern. We did survey work of across demographics in the U.S. of how concerned people are really about privacy. I sometimes think the consumer fear about privacy regulations, about privacy interruptions is overstated. We found, not surprisingly, with the younger cohorts, the teens and the 20-year-olds, not that a great a concern about privacy. And the big surprise, however, the cohort that was least surprised about privacy was the 7-year-olds. So I have a feeling that we are going through what's called a post-privacy generation, where people, especially for advertising content companies or publishing companies, are willing to make a trade-off. You give me free content, free services, free communications tools, I'll give you some of my data. I think most people using the internet today are relatively comfortable with that balance.
Really? Even given the uproar about Cambridge Analytica?
I think that came and went pretty quickly. Now, you also had a highly controversial election. And so, look, if you had the midterm elections that are coming up and there was clear evidence of foreign government intervention in those elections and that somehow the tech platforms were involved in that, we would come right back there. I think that's highly unlikely. I also think Facebook, frankly, was sideswiped by that. I don't think they realized how their platform could be misused. I don't think they're going to be that vulnerable the next time this comes up.
Facebook, meantime, hitting new all-time highs. Have they emerged from this completely unscathed?
Mostly unscathed. We still have this quarter. There's going to be concerns about whether the implementation of GDPR regulation in Europe is going to negatively impact the MAU and the DAU growth, the monthly users and the daily average user growth in Europe. So mostly unscathed, but there are a few question marks.
Do you think we'll see an impact on engagement?
No.
On ad spend?
No, I don't think so. And I think the real reason is when it comes to advertisers, they still want to go work with the companies that are the largest platforms and have the best targeting tools. And in terms of meeting up with the regulations and abiding by them, it's companies that have first-party data that their consumers directly give them that are the least under focus, the least have to make any changes. Google has an enormous amount of first-party data. It's everything you tell them about what you search for. They don't need third-party data. Neither does Facebook. You've told Facebook an enormous amount about yourself willingly. It's companies, usually medium, small-sized publishers, that require third-party data to accurately target you. Those are the ones that are in trouble. It's not Facebook or Google.
What about sentiment, though? Anecdotally, it seems like so many people I hear from aren't using Facebook, or they're angry at Facebook. Maybe they're still using Instagram, and it's hard not to believe that that's going to have an impact on usage.
Yeah, I don't want to be complacent about it. I think the issue has been overstated. Now, we track every 6 months, we do user surveys. We've seen continuously rising usage and usage of Instagram. And with Facebook, we've seen a decline in usage over time. But we haven't seen that accelerate under this era of the concerns of Cambridge Gate.
Cambridge Gate, I like it.